Hi, I'm Eric Siegel with ericstrains.com and welcome to episode 39 of my video train blog series. It's late November 2013 and just a couple days ago I hosted an open house for the layout that was part of the 2013 Piedmont Pilgrimage tour of layouts in the Atlanta and North Georgia area. The open house was a big success. We had a lot of fun and we had a lot of visitors. We had about 225 visitors and they came from all over the place. A lot of people were from around this area. We had people from as far away as Connecticut, Ohio, Michigan, Massachusetts. So it was really humbling to see so many people come from so far to see the layout. And again, we had a great time. We had a lot of kids, which is always fun. So definitely a big success this year. Now, in the last few weeks leading up to the open house, I did a lot of work on the layout. So that's what I'm going to show you today. And it's because I've been doing so much work on the layout that I just have not had time to do a lot of videos on YouTube. So that's why there haven't been any videos on YouTube in the last month or so. I've just been too busy. But one thing I have had some time for are some live broadcasts on Ustream. I started that about a week or two ago and it's been a lot of fun. I've had good success with it. Had a lot of people watching the broadcast. So I'm going to try to do at least one live broadcast a week going forward. That should be a lot of fun. It'll give you guys a chance to ask some questions and get some answers and see some of the little stuff that goes on the layout on a weekly basis or a daily basis. So keep an eye out for those. My Ustream channel is ustream.ericstrains.com, or if you follow me on Facebook, I will post announcements about the broadcasts whenever I'm going to make them. And speaking of broadcast, we actually did a live broadcast of the open house for those of you who couldn't make it or were too far away, and I got good feedback on that, so that was fun. I wasn't able to broadcast the entire open house because the camera was my phone and eventually the batteries ran out. But I think it recorded an hour or two of the open house and it had the sounds and everything. So apparently a lot of you guys like that, so I will do it again next year. But again, keep an eye out for those live broadcasts. I'll try to do them once a week and I'll put more information about that on Facebook. Anyway, I've got a lot of stuff to show you on the layout, a lot of progress to show you. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so the first thing everyone wants to know about is the second section of the big steel trestle. As you can see, it's in place. I finished it just before the open house, and it's looking really good. I received it from Jim Ballman at Stainless Unlimited about 2 weeks before the open house, so I had to work fast. I had never worked that fast on one of these trestle sections before, but it turned out great. The salt weathering looks fantastic in my opinion, and I'm really, really pleased with it. You can see the concrete pilings down there at the feet, salt weathering on the bridge and on the handrails, and the wooden deck up top. Now, as I've said before, when I get the bridge from Stainless Unlimited, it's raw stainless steel, and then I weather it and paint it and everything, and then I add the deck on myself. So the deck is me, the trestle itself is Jim Ballman over at Stainless Unlimited. And again, if you're interested in more information on his work, you can find his website at www.stainlessunlimited.com. I want to point something out. If you recall, there used to be a big opening here in the table. And in fact, during the open houses, I would like to sit in that hole. That was kind of my perch where I would sit while people would look at the layout. But I knew that I would have to make the hole smaller to accommodate that support tower on the trestle. And so what I did is I went ahead and just covered up the entire hole because as much as I liked the hole for my own use, it took away from the scenery on the layout. You know, when I would take a picture of a train, there'd be a big hole in the background. So I filled it in, and then I made a pop-up hole. So you can see the seams that are there now. That section pops out so that I can get access to that part of the layout and the back side of the layout and so forth. And then it goes back in so that there's some semblance of scenery when people come and see the layout. Now, I put ground cover down there just as a base scenery, just so people would not see bare plywood when they came to the open house. It's not going to stay like that. Obviously, I'm not going to have this big open field in the middle of my yard. So at some point, I'm going to add roads. You see where that CSX truck is? There's going to be a road that comes across here and goes back to the engine service facility. There's going to be a building here, probably a yard office or something like that. So that will not stay empty for long. And then the other thing I'm going to have to do is change the creek because when I had the hole in the layout, I had mirrors on either side of the creek to give the illusion of the creek going on, even though there was a hole in the layout. But now that I've got ground on top of it, I can't have the mirrors there. I've got to have culverts. So I'm going to take the mirrors out and replace them with what looks like a concrete wall and some culverts that will take the water from this side over to that side. Now, for those of you who follow me on Facebook, you've been able to see the progress of this second trestle section from raw steel to where it's at now, because on Facebook, I post a picture pretty much every day, especially at this time of year when I'm working on the layout on a daily basis. At the end of the night, I will post a picture on Facebook to show everybody what's been done. So if you're interested in following the daily progress on the layout, definitely check me out on Facebook. You can find that at facebook.ericstrains.com, or there's also a link on my website at www.ericstrains.com. So, to give you an overall view of this trestle and how it's looking so far, let me step up on the stairs here and get a little bit of an overhead view. And you can see, I think it looks pretty sweet, and when that third section is done, it's going to be awesome. I'm really pleased with the way this trestle has turned out. You know, one of the rewards that I get back from this hobby is that, you know, sometimes when you create something, and not just people in this hobby, but, you know, artists or architects or anybody who builds something, is that sometimes when you're done building whatever it is you're building, you're able to step back and detach yourself from it and say, wow, that really turned out well. I can't believe that I was involved in making that. You know, I had never done a trestle like this before. This is my first time doing a big steel trestle, my first time doing salt weathering, my first time building a deck on a trestle. I haven't done any of this before, and so it's really rewarding to step back, you know, when it's done and say, wow, I can't believe that I did that. I can't believe that this came from my brain. And, you know, it's better than I thought it would be. You know, when I thought about this trestle in my head, it turned out better than I thought it would be. So it's really nice to see it unfold like that. And it'll be really exciting when the third section gets in place. So that's what's next. The third section I'm hoping to have in place by maybe February or so of 2014. You can see I've got the temporary track up right now, and what I'll do is in, you know, late December or January, I will send this track off to Jim Ballman at Stainless Unlimited, and he will take my measurements and specs and build the third trestle section, and then I'll get it back, I'll paint it, I'll weather it, I'll put the deck on top, and then finally, the top loop up here will be in business. The next thing I want to show you is also in the main room, and it's the progress on the diesel shop that I've been building. I haven't made a ton of progress just because I haven't had time. I've been too busy doing other things on the layout, but I have painted the frame a nice Rust-Oleum Rusty Metal Primer red. So the frame is pretty much done. I added some little supporting struts and so forth. And so the next step will be to add walls and windows and doors and then work on some of the interior details as well. I've got some progress in the back rooms to show you, but first I want to give you a shelving update because I've made quite a bit of progress with the shelving situation in the last couple weeks. On the SD70 display case here that I built, I finally added the plexiglass door. I absolutely had to have the door installed before the open house because there was no way I was going to have an open house with a bunch of children running around and have these engines way down close to the floor that would be within reach of those children. I love having children come and see the layout. It's great. I have a ball with them. But children are children and they like to touch things. And if you put something that close to the floor, they're going to want to touch it. And then you end up with broken engines and stuff like that. So I had to have that door. So it finally came in 2 days before the open house. I got the plexiglass from a local glass maker. And I had to take the display case off the wall to install it. I put the hinges on this side and the latches on this side. The latches are, I don't know exactly what the name for these kind of latches are. I'm sure they have a name, but I got them at Home Depot and you just push them in like that. I put one in the middle, one up top, and one on the bottom. And then again, the hinges are on that side. And it looks great. It went a lot easier than I thought it would. I was kind of dreading it. I thought it would be a pain in the butt, but I got a glass drilling bit so that I wouldn't hurt the plexiglass when drilling the holes. And it went really smoothly. It only took about 45 minutes to get the door installed, and I'm really happy with it. The only bad thing is that next time I build a display case with a plexiglass door, I may decide to go with 1/4-inch plexiglass instead of the 1/8-inch plexiglass that I used here. There's nothing really wrong with the 1/8 inch. It works fine, but it's a little flimsy, and I think the 1/4-inch would probably be a little more sturdy and firm. But it works okay. It's not a big deal, but in the future, if I do another shelf, which I will right here, I'll talk about that in just a second, I will probably go with 1/4-inch. But again, nothing wrong with 1/8 inch. I'm not going to replace it or anything. It's just one of those things, one of those mental notes you make after you're done doing a project. Right here, that's where the next wooden display case will be. I've already got the lumber for it. It's up in the garage. I should start working on it in the next couple weeks. And who knows when I'll be done with it, hopefully within the next couple months. And that'll be right here. It's going to be about 5 feet long and about 4.5 feet tall. Basically, from right about here down to the floor and from the wall over to the light switch. And this display case will be where I put some of my sets, like the Blue Goose set, the Southern Crescent set, the Santa Fe passenger set that I have. So this will be kind of a set display case. Something else I want to show you, I'm not sure if I showed you this before, but I added 2 shelves above the door here with some BNSF ES44s and a Canadian National SD70, and then on the other side, I expanded this. There used to be just 1 shelf with the MTH Gevo Hybrid, but I split it up and added 2 shelves so that I could put some more Montana Rail Link engines up there. I also did some new shelving work in the stairwell. Up at the top here, I added a 4th shelf against this wall. It's the bottom shelf, and that's a Lionel CPES 44, an MTH SD70, and then a little MTH Southern Bobber caboose. And then I also added a 6th shelf on this wall. It's the bottom shelf with the Lionel New York Central Sharknose set and the Lionel Milwaukee Road set. And then down here, I added 4 more shelves. On these 2, we've got the Atlas FURX SD40s and the MTH GP38. And then on these 2 shelves, I've got the MTH tunnel motors up top, an Atlas MP15, a very weathered Atlas Conrail MP15, and then a Sioux Line transfer diesel from MTH. I used to have some signs here, some Lionel signs, and because I put the shelves here, I had to move the signs. So you'll notice all these signs are now on this wall instead. Okay, here we are in the Colorado room, and I've done a lot of work in the last couple weeks leading up to the open house. In fact, this room has seen the most progress of any room on the layout between last year's open house and this year's open house. So it was a lot of fun watching the reaction of people who came to last year's open house and then came to this year's open house. They were really surprised at how much this room had changed. I mean, at this time last year, none of this was here. Basically, the only thing in this room was the track, the backdrops were here, and then the tunnels were there, but not the mountains, just the tunnels and the tunnel portals. So this room has changed a lot over the last year. Now, most of the work in the last couple weeks has been in the corners, over here and over there. So over here, I added a whole bunch of trees. So it looks much nicer right off the bat. And then I did this hill with this tunnel in it. The tunnel doesn't go anywhere, it just dead ends into the wall, but I put a mirror in it so that it looks like it keeps on going. That's not an original trick. I didn't think of that. I saw it on a DVD. Another guy did it on his layout. And so I kind of cherry-picked that and put it on my layout. I think it's a really neat trick. The track for the narrow gauge line is now completely ballasted, all except way down here at the passenger station. And that's just because I want to do some specialty work down here around the station. But other than that, it's all ballasted. Over here, this whole hillside and tunnel is brand new. The retaining walls and the tunnels, I made those from basswood. I'm real proud of those. They turned out really well. I stained them with a stain called weathered oak. So it still has a natural wood color, but it looks weathered, and I like it. And there's also a tunnel on that side that has the retaining walls as well. There's a smaller retaining wall back there. But I think it looks great. And then, of course, on top, I put the Lionel wind turbines. And those do operate. I'll turn them on real quick for you. Let me grab the power switch real quick. There we go. So they do operate. And there's also an LED light in the tunnel. The rest of my tunnels on my layout are not lit, and I will probably go back at some point in time and put lights in them just for maintenance work, and you know, if you run a camera car through, it's nice to have a little bit of light in the tunnel. And so learning from my past experiences, when I was building this tunnel, I went ahead and put some lights inside of it. You can't really see them, but if I was to turn off the lights, you'd see a little glow coming from that tunnel. I think the wind turbines are pretty cool. At first I thought they were way too big. I didn't realize they were that big, but then, you know, I talked to some people on Facebook and so forth, and real wind turbines are gigantic, and so I think they're actually okay, and the more I look at them, the more I'm okay with them. I think they're really cool, and they're certainly an attention grabber the way they rotate like that. But definitely a lot of progress here. I've done a lot of ground cover up here, and just like in the main room on that pop-out that I created, the ground cover here is, a lot of it's just temporary. I put it down so that people would not see plywood when they came in here. So over here, I'll probably put a structure or something over here, or some people or whatever. And the same thing over here. There's a little bit of plywood back there. It drives me crazy. I hate when people come to the layout and see plywood, but sometimes you just can't avoid it. But in the future, this will be more developed and have more structures and more people and so forth. And that little shed there is temporary. I'm not sure it's going to be there forever. Probably not. I'll probably put something more appropriate there, but I had the little hobo shed, so I went ahead and put it there just for the open house so that people would be able to see something on that siding there. But really pleased with the Colorado room. It's coming together very nicely, and hopefully over the next year, leading up to next year's open house in 2014, this room will probably almost be done by next year, I'm hoping. The next area of work here is going to be in this corner. I'm going to work on the station, put lights inside and trees and scenery all around and people. And then of course I have to build the Coors Brewery down here, which is going to be a big project, but it should be a lot of fun. The last place I want to show you today is the Carolina room. I haven't made a whole lot of progress here, and this is the least developed table on the layout, but hopefully over the next year, as the waterfall and lake area gets more complete, this table will start to fill out. Now, on the lake and waterfall front, I haven't done a whole lot of work recently, but I have spackled the lake bed, but that's pretty much it. So there's still a lot of work to be done before this thing is anywhere near complete. Something else I've done is with that signal. I think I showed you this signal last time, but it wasn't working, and I've wired it up now, so it is working. The block for this signal starts right here and then goes through the hallway room, across the bridge, and then into the Colorado room. So to make the block for the signal work, I had to actually add a wire to the bridge. I already had the bridge wired up for power on these two rails. So what I did is I used this rail here for the block system for the signal. So that works, and the signal system continues to grow. I've also added a couple new trees up here, but nothing big. Over on this side of the Carolina room, again, not a lot of progress. I do need to start working on the industry here soon, but that's still on the drawing board. And then up here, I added a bunch of tombstones for a cemetery. Obviously, it's not done yet, but I'm going to have a little cemetery up there. I think that's pretty cool. And that's about it for the Carolina room. Okay, so there you have it. There's all the progress on the layout lately, and as you can see, over the last few weeks and months, I've been really busy doing all sorts of work all over the layout. Now, normally at this time of year, just before the open house, I do a layout update video where I show the parts of the layout in more detail, and I also put a camera on the front of the train and run it around the layout for a few minutes to give you a train's eye view of the layout. But I just didn't have time to do it this year before the open house. But now that the open house is done, I will do that video, so keep an eye out for that in the coming weeks. And also, I'm long overdue for some product review videos. I've got several in the works right now, so again, keep an eye out for those in the coming weeks as well. And then finally, like I said earlier, also keep an eye on Ustream, because I've been doing those live broadcasts, and I will try to do one a week. So keep an eye on Ustream or my Facebook page, because I will post announcements about those broadcasts on Facebook as well as Twitter. So that about wraps it up for this episode. I'm Eric Siegel, and I'll see you next time.